Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack, Chief Lead Generation Officer at salesbread.com. You got your water cooler beverage, Jeremy?
Yeah, I do. Usually it's water for the water cooler. Today is a fizzy
I got
water.
iced coffee today.
All right.
It's a little late in the day for that, but it gives me energy. That's a good thing because we're having a water cooler podcast episode
That's
today.
right. It's been a long time since we met on the water cooler, Jack.
That's right. Locations are not that convenient for hanging out at a water cooler, but we make it happen from time to time. We're going to be talking about cold outreach for recruiting, I
That's
think.
right. And I don't
Team
think it will
building.
only be relevant to recruiters. I think it'll be very relevant to other companies, especially companies like QuickMail that is growing and recruiting. And so maybe we're going to talk about that. At least I'll talk about some of my challenges. That'll be interesting, I think.
And, I have to throw in some list building
That's right.
fun stuff, even if you're not a recruiter, like you said, should be relevant for finding a unique spin on identifying the right folks, or maybe nothing. It's a water cooler. There's
So
no
water
pressure
cooler.
today.
No
If you're
pressure.
trying to get step-by-step action tips, it's not here. It's at course.quickmail.io. That's where you can immediately get shortcuts to setting up cold email outreach processes that bring you a bunch of leads. But we're water cooling today, so there's not a lot of that.
Jack, a question for you. Water cooler, does that actually needs to be sponsored with those sponsors?
Should it be sponsored?
Should
Does it
it?
even deserve a sponsorship? Maybe a light sponsorship.
That's right. Okay. You want to try first?
SalesBread will bring you one lead per day.
Love it. QuickMail.io will make your email land in the inbox at scale.
Simple.
All right.
All right. So talk to me about recruiting, Jeremy.
Yeah. So so basically, we have been trying to recruit in the last few months on and off. And one of the things that we did was to create an account on LinkedIn, but for the team, right? And so we've been sort of like stopped by LinkedIn, unfortunately, or at least they're asking for a passport, identity stuff. And let's say that the team member we use the account for doesn't actually want to give official legal documents to LinkedIn. So
Yes.
anyway, we're going to have to explore a different route. And so it's kind of the thing, right?
So if you're listening, if that does happen, I can tell you within 48 hours of sharing an ID, you should be back online, no problem. That's, I think, the solution LinkedIn came up with how do we make sure people who are really sending are here. And basically, sometimes it's not an issue, sometimes it is, and you have to work around it. So with recruiting, we were like, all right, well, let's talk cold email then. And the challenge with the personal email addresses came up. It's like, do you reach out with a company email? Do you reach out with a personal? That could be a little bit sticky. Because if you reach out to company,
Fair enough.
well, if you're kind of getting them off of that team onto yours, they may have an inbox that's monitored, and so obviously that's going to change the
That's
way
a
they
good
reply,
point. Maybe that
right?
could be the angle of the campaign. Like, hey, I thought I'll avoid, reaching out on LinkedIn in case emails go to your professional address. I don't know if
Well,
that's
no, what I'm thinking is, if let's say the company is company.com, if we
right.
reach out to Mike at company.com, it's possible that those emails are being like monitored. So if they reach out saying, "Yeah, I'd definitely love to work for you guys," that's a non-starter.
I guess that's what I
Um,
meant. And then the copy I gave you was if you actually contact on the personal email address as a sort of like
right,
disclaimer. This is why I'm actually reaching out to your personal one. I didn't want
100%.
to cause any friction at work, type of thing.
That's right.
I guess that
So
could be a way around
it,
it.
because usually we're saying don't contact personal emails,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so Look, I mean, it's nice to be able to use LinkedIn for recruiting. That is helpful. And if you can't, I think this may be an exception to the personal email rule, would you say?
At least I haven't tried it, but at least it makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm sorry to reach out on a personal one. Um, that could be
Yep. Now, I'm curious
worth a
if
try.
there's
Mhm.
yeah, it is worth a try. And granted, you can get good replies on a company email. Most companies are not closely monitoring inbox responses. I've seen after doing some like recruiting style campaigns at SalesBread, typically it's, hey, I'm interested. Here's my personal email. That is a lot of the time. It's either that or here's my cell. Um, so the prospect will transition for you. And I think it's a good idea to say, like, call it out. Like, I probably shouldn't be
Yeah,
reaching out on whatever.
I like that.
Yeah. So, but I'm interested in how how we're finding these individuals to reach out to in the first place. I know that if you're doing recruiting, sometimes tell me if you think this is crazy, Jeremy, but I believe recruiters are some of the most savvy list builders out there because, like, I'll give you an example. If you're reaching out trying to recruit engineers, it's a different scenario than selling to engineers because if we need to sell a product to, let's say, engineers at AI companies, for example, that's a really easy list to build. You find AI companies and then engineers with the right titles at those companies, and you're done. But recruiters take it a second level deeper and they say, all right, well, yeah, these engineers are at AI, but we also have to make sure that they write in Ruby or Python or something. They need to a lot of times read their profiles, their bios to see if their background is relevant. And for us, we don't really care that deep if you're doing sales.
I don't know. I mean, LinkedIn provide a lot of, you know, filtering attributes for that, but
Like
I guess
keyword search, like keyword search.
not just keyword search, but um, w- you could probably use like the current job. It's harder to find for past jobs, right? It's harder to say like in the past you worked 2 years on Python, for example. This is obviously difficult, but you can definitely say in your current job with a title of Ruby on Rails, for example, and in your job for at least 2 years. And you could say like total experience 5 years, and more or less you're gonna trigger, you're gonna get some junior, mid-level, type of engineers.
What I've found is, let's say you're using Python as a keyword
Right.
and the engineer has to be a title. I'm shocked at
Mm,
how unreliable the results are,
that's
Jeremy. Like,
correct.
as an experiment, if you're listening and you think LinkedIn is only giving us great data, do a search, type engineer, and then keyword, mention Python. The first 10, 9 out of 10 of them are gonna, like, if you go to the actual profiles and do a command F and search Python, they'll come up. But as the list gets deeper, I've seen half of the results not actually having the keyword that you want. That's why
Yeah,
I
or
mean,
you
if you're a
see you have
recruiter,
it
you
at skill, and then the guy just actually puts all the language, he's been ever
right.
touching since, high school type of thing, right?
Or even worse, Jeremy, it doesn't exist on the profile at all. Like, I've
Mm.
seen that so common, I don't use keyword search anymore. But what you could do, and again, this is something I stole from recruiting blogs back in the day, but they call it like a Boolean X-ray search, and you can ask Google to show you LinkedIn profiles based on keywords instead of asking LinkedIn to show you based on keywords.
Oh,
And again,
clever.
if you're curious, just type in like Boolean X-ray search for recruiters. There's like a lot of interesting ways that we're using Google to query LinkedIn because it's just more reliable. Why? I have no idea. How hard could that be? But then again, that's the world we live in.
Search is
And
hard, but yeah, fair enough.
yeah, search is hard.
For engineers, to
Interesting.
engineer
Really? How
search.
hard could
It is
that
really
be?
hard.
How hard
No,
could
it
that
is really
be? You have
hard.
a database, you have columns, and you have about goes
Mm.
here. Can't you just query, like, if about contains string, give me this? Why is that hard?
There's lots of reasons, Jack, especially
Like
performance.
what?
well,
Like
around
what?
performance, right? But I don't know, whatever.
Wait,
It,
I'm
it
still not
it's not that
convinced.
easy. Anyway,
Really?
point is that you could do the search in LinkedIn. The problem used to be, because it's getting way better, but the problem used to be that most developers were not on LinkedIn. It was a very difficult role to actually recruit on LinkedIn. It's getting better for. I think nowadays even juniors get LinkedIn profiles, but in the past that wasn't the case. People were on GitHub, people were on SourceForge, people were on like
Right,
different Stack Overflow, but not
right.
LinkedIn, right?
Now, what do we know about identifying people likely to want to leave their company? I mean, one thing we could do is take a look at Glassdoor ratings and find companies that are clearly bad to work at according to their Glassdoor rating, and approach developers there, approach salespeople there, what have you. I mean, any weight there? I'm thinking of a few things, but it's like, how do we?
Possible. I guess the personal better indicator of someone willing to leave is to look at the time that they're spending on previous jobs, which actually is a really good indicator of like, or actually a red flag for me. If someone's been in 5 different jobs and the most they've been is 8 months on all those 5 different jobs, like one, sure,
Right,
you can have like, you can mess up,
bad fit,
right? But if you after
or they
5
can mess up.
jobs,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you as in like the person, doing the job, like of course you can have chosen, the wrong one, whatever. But after 5 jobs, you kind of wonder like either that person is a troublemaker or doesn't want to stay too long, like alienate maybe their managers or like have a conflicting relationship constantly, or they're really poor at making judgment as to what is actually going to work for them. Or so overall for me, it's always like a red flag. It means like that person, like I'm going to spend a year training that person, making them up to speed, like super performant, and then they're going to leave. And so that's a big risk generally with juniors. You don't know how long
right.
they're gonna stay.
But I'm thinking, like, what about from a list building perspective? Do we want to find people that have been at a company for 5 years, between 5 and 8 years, because
Yeah,
that's
and
the
that's
classic churn?
absolutely, that's kind of like the return. I think no, I think it depends on um uh well, to close the circle is basically you look at their tenure, how long they've been lasting with this, and then you say like, maybe 2 years, then you come up with a list, and then you have to look effectively at their past jobs. Were they always 8 months in their past jobs, and then this one is 2 years? I mean, so, okay, they may like it, but they may also getting bored if it's like 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. You may say like, hey, it's been, you don't say it, but it's like, hey, it's been 2 years, maybe it's time to look for something else, whatever. If it's less than a year, again, of like I mentioned, that's probably a red flag, and you probably wouldn't want to, because they may jump, but
That's pretty cool. So, in other words, take a list of potentials,
right,
review how long they usually stay at their jobs, and then
exactly,
if that value is close to what
that's
they're
right,
currently at, then so ideally you want to be just in front of that.
that's right, that's what I'm thinking,
Right.
and it does work.
I It's pretty smart because we are what we repeatedly do, right? Like, if
It's the same thing with founders. Usually founder fatigue, which means like the founder like um kind of have like,
wants to jump off a building.
yeah, well, not that extreme, but it's more like, yeah, I've done this, done that. And usually that happens around like 3-4 years. And so they are private equity firm that just go on and say, okay, right, that's been 4 years for this company, now let's reach out to them. So it's like part of their filtering thing.
Funny.
Yeah.
I have to take us on a tangent. Do you remember a long time ago, we were reviewing a lawsuit or a legal action against LinkedIn?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Whoa, that's long.
right. The company in question that was being sued by LinkedIn that ended up winning. Um, I don't know if you remember what they sold, but they were providing job um, tenure insights. They were doing just that. They were
Didn't.
reviewing how long people
Okay.
stayed, and look,
Mhm.
and they were selling it to recruiting firms because they were like, they were very savvy with it. They said, we can give you a report of the 150 Python developers that are most likely to be leaving their roles based on their past job activity
That's
this month.
brilliant. Yeah.
How great is that? And
And
LinkedIn, they had to get that through LinkedIn. LinkedIn sued them and LinkedIn lost. It was like the first win against the big data companies
they kind of
about
stopped
like
suing, right? No, it's just like they figured out
this.
like they probably lost a couple of things and say, okay, we're gonna pursue, eradicating bots
Right,
instead, or something like that,
right.
right?
It's been quiet. Let's just
Yeah,
say it's
that's
been
right.
quiet. And I'm still here. I'm not behind bars. So
Yet.
that's still a good thing.
Well,
Yet,
I can hear the
exactly.
SWAT knocking on your door, Jack. Looting.
Anyways, no, we're talking about building a recruiting list a little bit like, sneakier, if you will. And
They are
I don't know, is that
signals.
worth the effort? You think that's worth the effort, Jeremy?
Absolutely. Like, for us, we are actually recruiting like up to 3 engineers this year. And it's really important. We need to, advance on a roadmap, and engineering is a very key role in our company. And so we need to, find, so
Question,
every
but like,
lead is a potential yes. And so therefore that's
right.
important from that standpoint. So yes.
But like refining the list based on tenure, is that
I don't
worth it,
know.
right?
That's
Like,
one signal. Someone could argue about it. There are different signals you can get, like the one we were discussing before where we recorded, which I got from a smart founder who actually got it from another smart founder. That's how it goes. And they were saying, like, look at people getting laid off today. There's especially at the moment, there's lots of layoffs of big companies, founded company that says, actually, we need a bigger runway. And so they're firing like 20% even of their workforce. And so, and then I say like, hey, yeah, but those people that are getting redundant are usually not core, not critical, or the first layoff is always a sort of like trim the fat type of thing. The second layoff is, it's a bit lean and it's
it
harder. And the
hurts.
third one is like, it's like close to the bone, right? But he say like, yeah, but don't contact the one who have been laid off. Contact the one that are still there. And obviously, they are probably asking about like, oh, what's going to be my future? Is there going to be a second layoff and so on? And so it may be smart to get a conversation at that time. And so if you find out, one of your competitors, is trying to have some layoff, maybe that's a strategy you could potentially use, yes, and have success with it as a
It's pretty
signal.
clever. That's great.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Now, how you come about the companies that are doing layoffs, I'm curious. I
Oh,
mean,
there's websites that
what do
are
they
really cool.
oh,
Like,
what I was thinking, you go to the news. You could say, like, E
yeah, that's right.
enter news and, like, company layoffs, and then you'll have it.
I think there is layoffs dot for your information dot FYI,
What?
Um,
Really?
yeah, and it's a tracker of all the sort of like founded company, that announced that they got layoff, through TechCrunch, whatever kind of thing. And so
Wow.
list of them.
It's there. It's
And
there. You know,
sometimes it's amazing. It's like, whoa, 20% of the workforce. It's like, wow, even like you got 80%. And it's like, wow, there's lots. Like,
very smart.
Coinbase or stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, so I think it's worth talking about what do you say to these candidates, once you've found them?
You could use like
So
the title of a horror movie, like "You're Next." I
you
don't think
could
they're
do
gonna
that.
work, but
You
yeah, you
should
could be
not, but
next.
you could. What I'm thinking is, and again, this is Watercooler, so I'm gonna really try to not make this actionable.
Sure.
But I see a lot of, recruiting campaigns are not actually mentioning price or salary. Instead, if they happen to be like a cool startup, cool being they're working on something very important to a particular industry, that's the leader. It's like, "Hey, come be on this team and change this whole industry from the, kind of bottom up."
Yeah, I guess one of my personal challenge, which I think should be the challenge of anyone recruiting. To be honest, it's not just about people ready and willing to leave and have a conversation, although that's great for leads. I think it's really about, are they going to be a great match for us? Like a good example is we really operate like a sports team in our company. We're really trying to win the championship, and we're all like all in, all dedicated. Sure, we have got some great perks, whatever, but the point is like we require a certain type of mentality, and so that's very important to have the right people with the right driver mentality and so on. And it's really not easy to figure it out through their LinkedIn page, or just a list of engineers that you get from layoffs, or whatever is out there. It's really difficult to get that. So that's one of the challenges that I had, because you could be doing interviews all days. I guess that's a sort of like answer. You grind it up.
Meaning you just have to get in touch with people and find out, right?
And the thing is, like, you can find it very, very easily and very, very quickly once you're on a call with the other person. Like, do they have the drive, the personal drive, and will they be a good fit? And
Right.
and yeah, and it's easy to sort of like lose a lot of time with that, right? When two people are not aligned, and so therefore that won't be a good match. And I guess recruiter have the same issue, because they obviously know their clients, and their client is requesting some type of character. So unless you spam them with like everyone, you sort of like need to do the filtering somehow. Maybe that's the added value. I don't know.
In a great scenario, your messaging does some of the filtering too. It's like, let's say that that your company is on a short timeline to develop a product, and that's going to require a lot of work, right? And so I think if you're going to require new team members to put in like 50 hours per week, for example, because it's an ambitious project and they're only looking for people that are willing to dedicate, saying that right away is like, we're expecting 50 hours per week. In exchange, we're going to compensate well. Don't get me wrong. This is
I get that.
something that I want to talk to you. But that way, if the 50-hour per week doesn't resonate, you've done yourself a favor by not letting them into your candidate process.
100%. The trick with us is it's not about the hour. It's about like how much you can drive things. And everyone thinks they can drive things, but it's not always the case. You know what I mean? It's like if you ask them to be the judge of it, it never actually works. You actually need to really, because most people who are on drivers and passengers don't necessarily think of it that way. And so when you ask them like, are you a driver, they're going to say yes, yes, yes. And then you ask them for example, and you realize actually that's not driver, that's just doing very well your job, but that's not enough at our company. So it's not about the number of hours you're putting, right? But everyone thinks they are good enough. So.
Okay. So Jeremy, let's explore something together. So
okay,
a great recruiting
I'm enjoying
campaign
that.
could only, so far so good. A great recruiting campaign can bring in one awesome team member, and it's a raving success, right?
For me, it will be definitely. Well, if you think about it, I'm sorry,
just
I don't want
yes.
to interrupt. Yeah, okay, I'm saying yes. Got it.
Yes. Okay. So the volume doesn't have to be tremendously high, right? We don't need like a sale every 5 days or something, right?
That's right.
It's a one. So what if, imagine this like crazy scenario where we took a different approach to find this driver. What if, we're hiring an engineer, let's say a Python engineer. I know that would never happen at
No, that would
QuickMail.
not happen at
Ever,
QuickMail.
ever. But it might at SalesBread, because
it
I
may,
prefer
sure.
Python. Anyways, would it be so crazy to build a list of 100, let's say VP of development, that work in Python, and ask them, like, do like outreach there? Doesn't exist. Shameful.
Sorry.
And ask them, I'm curious, who's the best, like when it comes to driving projects, who's the greatest Python developer you've ever worked with? And if they're on their team now, congrats. But like, I'm curious if they're out there somewhere.
I love that one.
And then, okay, let's say 40% of them 30% of them give you a name. Okay, that's 30 names of some pretty bad to the bone engineers.
Yeah, I would
That
agree
might be
with
fun,
that. Would
And then you
people
can
what's
say,
yeah.
Sam Smith gave me your name when I asked for the
Oh, I
greatest
love the
Python
intro.
engineer, I need to talk to you, whatever, right?
Yeah, I love it.
That's kind of cool.
What's in it for them? Why would they actually give me a name? Where would they spend the time thinking of like, yeah, I should give you this name? Tricky because
It's an
I could
awesome
say like, hey, I
question.
came across, a really
Look,
fantastic
if
opportunity, but they're
people
gonna
ask
say,
me,
give me the opportunity, I'll forward it to them.
people,
It's always the same.
no, it's like this. It's like people ask me a lot, like, all right, we don't touch anything to do with SEO or content marketing or something. So a lot of times people will ask, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Who's the best person you know in that space? I'm happy to share one or two names that I've been sharing because they're great. If somebody cold emailed me and said, I know SalesBread doesn't do content, but you guys seem like you've worked with enough good companies, you probably know some others in search or whatever, I would provide that name because it's easy, it doesn't take a lot. And here's one reason I would do it. I know every time I send a referral to these one or two people, they like that. And it's like a nice way to kind of, I don't know, grow that relationship.
Sure. At the same time, there's a lot of people who would not want to sort of like, spam their friend with some BS type of offering. And so very often they will come by and say, give me your offer first, and then I'll forward, and they will contact you if they like it, those sort of things.
Yeah.
So, something, how could we then improve the odds?
How about what if okay, Jeremy. I've done this exact thing with consulting campaigns before, where we will essentially ask an agency who they know, like who they share work with. Like agencies are
Yeah,
different than employees.
that's right.
I think there's more of like yeah, this is what they do. They take projects all the time. Here you go. So maybe the play instead would not go after the engineering managers or VPs. It might be go after the podcast hosts for an engineering subject. It might be like asking, okay, just for an example, if you said, hey, I'm looking for a consultant that specializes in Python, who's the best? You might get a lot more names that way, right? Would it be
Possibly,
absolute?
although you probably
Yeah.
would not get a driver like through podcast and stuff. It's so easy to get by and just blow smoke, on a podcast.
Maybe this has no legs. I
Mm.
just know that the person's out there and it's known by others, and potentially there's a way to start.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just would like to increase the odds, right, of getting like a real name. And we could obviously like say, hey, here's a referral bonus or whatever. But the problem with this is that they may give you like rubbish name just so they can get like a referral or some stuff like that. Although it's
Well, the
still you
referral,
still get
it
the
should
name.
only apply if the hire is made,
Of course, of
you
course.
know?
So yeah, maybe waste the perspective of wasting everyone's time. Yeah, maybe. No, I'm not sure.
Interesting. It could be, I mean, like think about this. When we were looking for podcast guests a while back, I think I just made a post on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, we just had these people come on our show, John Carlton and whatever, and listen." And I said, "Who's next?" And like oddly, there was so many people like saying, "Oh, this person." Granted, it's
Mm-mm.
not a full-time position, but I know that with the right approach, people are more than happy to share who they love.
I agree. What about contacting the companies and say, who did you had to let go, who was absolutely fantastic and at driving initiatives at your job? In exchange, I'll let you know
And
what
you
other
wish
companies are saying. And so you'll end up with like maybe a preferred list of who is a good engineers or whatever.
you mean, well, hold on. What if you said, like, I know layoffs are painful and you wish you could keep everyone. Is there
That's right.
someone that had to go that you want them to find employment right away that was like truly a star player? I want to talk to them and potentially, get them back working. Kind of mutual
Um,
benefit.
Yeah, not sure. You're probably going to have those people they had to let go and they feel bad about it.
Pretty stuff.
But there
It
is some
is.
stuff here, right? There is some stuff here to explore, for sure.
I mean, granted, it is a lot simpler to say qualified person gets a message from you. The message should be compelling. That's like very straight line recruiting. I think we're like looking at
Yeah, that one
weird
is
sources
obvious. That's right.
for
It's
it.
because that one is
But
obvious. Otherwise, people wouldn't listen
it
to
works
this
though.
podcast. Mm.
Exactly. All right. Well, Jeremy, when it comes to recruiting, I know this is a water cooler, but what else are we not talking about here
For recruiting,
for recruiting?
yeah, we had a lot of really good recruiters having really good results with us. So this is definitely something that you can make scale and work.
Oh,
Um,
100%. I mean, that's the recruiting industry.
Maybe that's what I should be doing. I should actually be looking at whoever is actually recruiting best and contacting them. Like whoever is using my platform very well, a recruiter that's got like a lot of replies or whatever, and then
Right?
just ask that recruiter like, "Hey, can you find me someone?
I mean,
I need 3 engineers."
the easy button, right?
Yeah, why not?
Now, the thing we haven't talked about is I kind of find list building for recruiting is the hardest, and yet the messaging for recruiting is the easiest because you're offering money, substantial money to everyone that you send that message to. It's kind of there's some inherent curiosity about how much are you not getting paid that if you replied to this message, you might be getting paid.
Hmm. Would that be your follow-up? Like follow-up, by the way, we're paying X or
It depends
like
what you can
give
offer,
perks.
but if that is one of your selling points, if salary is there, don't be hiding it. I wouldn't suggest putting in writing the starting amount, but I would make it very clear that this is going to be monetary gain from what they're currently getting paid. And you could just use that exact words because all you're trying to do is have that discussion, hopefully on the phone after you've qualified. Um, because that number you throw out, you probably could go a little higher, right? And if it's truly the person, you don't want to throw a low number their way. So I would hold off on hard numbers. What about you?
No, I totally agree. I think it's always hard. Also, sometimes you have the feeling that this person is going to be really good on paper. You have the conversation with them, and you think like, yeah, they're probably not there. After doing some inquiry, looking at the code together or stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I would definitely hold off, but definitely there is some perks that could be advertised. Maybe it's like fully 100% remotely. Working 4 days a week, whatever type of thing that will probably be a great reminder. Like it's an easy type of reminder. It's a new information. um yeah, and then you could see if that sway them. And I don't know, what do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's smart. Mix it up. Like we always talk about, every message should have something new to the conversation. But I have to come back to this like list idea. I'm laughing because I know this is possible. I'm not quite sure the
Which
path
one?
to get it, but finding the worst engineering managers on LinkedIn, the ones that have the quickest turnover in the industry. So you could find like list every VP engineering and
That's
then
funny.
find everyone on the engineering team and like examine who's worked with them. You could even do like Sales Navigator past company includes this title, and you could just like do an analysis. It'll take a long time, maybe a week or something, maybe a day if you're really clever or focused on a niche. But you could find like the worst manager to work for based on churn and contact their team. Because if you have a terrible boss, you're
It's
gonna
interesting.
entertain a recruiting message a lot different than if you loved your boss, for example, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Definitely.
It's funny because, like, we know it can be achieved,
Yeah.
and if it was, it would be, like, kinda great to have the list of the worst managers ever,
and then contacting their team every time. And every time the guy is just, or the girl is really annoyed because keeps losing, member on his team. It's because you keep poaching them.
There's some money there somewhere. I don't know who's gonna do it, but
That's bad.
it would be
That's
like,
mean.
yeah.
That's really mean.
Is it? Yeah, well, it's mean to be a mean manager, I think.
That's true.
Shame on them. But yeah, we're just looking for patterns, and it, it's funny, and thanks for entertaining some of the wilder ideas. But at the end of the day, recruiting's pretty straightforward. There's no boring way to tell someone they've won the lottery. So just make sure you clearly tell them why they've won the lottery with you. Also, I'll give you one other tip that I grabbed from, I think this was Joseph Sugarman. I don't talk about him on the podcast that much, but I think
Okay.
he's one of the better copywriters. He also has a lot of books for copywriters like us who want to level up. And he says that if you can call out why this person is uniquely suited for this advert, for this email, for this
Yeah. Job.
poster,
Mhm.
whatever, right? It's going to instantly be more appealing. So the example from the book is like limit it by geography. It's only for homeowners in this zip code. Oh, like, okay, like now that, I'm special, I qualify. So when you reach out, this is only for Python developers with at least 10 years of experience that have worked on big product teams before. Right? It's like, okay, I guess that's me
Mhm.
and not a whole lot of others. What do you got? So
Yeah.
try and be super specific when you build your list, and then tell those folks on your list that they're very specific and special. It's not BS. It's actually just convey it, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
means
yeah.
something.
I get that. Yeah,
Reels
there's
are
lots of yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different approach to that. It's almost like there's too many options, then not then we don't do anything because it's just like too many choices, too many different roads. So it's just a matter of picking one and going with it.
Here's what I would suggest. Do like the straight line recruiting, which is find people with the right skills and tell them they won the lottery. And then maybe for like a second try, do a weird one. Build your list of people likely to churn, for example, and see
I
if that
do
does
like the
much.
idea of reaching out to people and say, hey, or a different tackle, like, hey, what is the one person you couldn't keep because they were too good? Because sometimes it happens, like more often than people like to say it. It's like some really good person, they're too good, they can't keep them because they got too much red tape, they got some processes that doesn't work for that person, or that doesn't go fast enough, the growth has stalled, whatever, and so therefore they can't keep it.
Jeremy, I figured it out.
Ooh, did you?
You crack up. Now
Oh,
I
you mean a
know.
company going
Now I
down already, or in LinkedIn? No.
no.
What's
Now
that?
I know how to get a total stranger to tell you who the best Python developer they've ever worked with was.
Okay, I'm listening. Also, I
Okay.
don't care about Python, but if you do the
Ah,
same thing with a Ruby on Rails developer,
that is Ruby on Rails. Okay, watch. This is a cold email.
all right,
Hey, Jeremy.
all right.
I am the. Okay, let's do a good job here. Hey, Jeremy. Quick mail runs on Ruby. So here's my question. Who is the greatest Ruby developer you've ever worked with? I'd love to interview them and get them featured on my podcast on Ruby on Rails. It's the showcase of the best of the best.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reply you're gonna get. It's like, "What's your show?" I'll send it to him, and if he's happy, he's going
That's
to reach
fine.
out.
That's totally fine. Send it. I was on the receiving end of this thing, by the way, when I was just like freelance copywriter. It
Ouais?
was like, hey, I'm interviewing the best copywriters ever, and I'm gonna ask you how you work, and other copywriters listen. I ended up saying no because I was like, what? Why would I do this? And he had a terrible answer. He was like, honestly, I don't. But it's like,
Why should I do it? I don't know. I wouldn't do it either. What?
all he had to say was like, look, my audience is not just Ruby developers. It's people looking to hire Ruby developers. You come on this show, you may land your dream job. Okay. Right. And then after the show, you've got this network of kick-ass Ruby developers. You should do that. I mean, it wouldn't be crazy that more recruiters start doing these kinds of podcasts, these kind of
Or
video interviews, something. Right?
hear me out. Or I could, I'm an entrepreneur. I create companies, so I could say like, hey, I'm doing research for my next company where we want to build a network of the best, Ruby on Rails developer, whatever. But then it'd be a bit of a mouse and whisker. It'd be like a
Yeah.
bit like you're gonna have to
Yes.
hard time to turn it to something else.
It's not about turning it. I think if you said very candidly, like, look, we're gonna have a great episode. I'm gonna ask you these kind of questions. It's informal, whatever. It's gonna be about 30 minutes. And look, between you and me, only the best developers come on the show. So if you're ever looking for an opportunity,
Yeah, who do you
please
got? Who did you have?
allow me to bug you, every quarter, because you're a star and I want to stay in touch. But who's going to say no to that,
Yeah, developers, they ask for proofs. So it may be easier to get a marketer because their ego is getting the best of them. But usually developer ask for proof. Like, oh yeah, who did you got on your show lately? Well, I haven't
Oh,
started my show yet.
I need to be clear. This is not a smoke and mirrors podcast. You can very quickly look someone up, and if they have one review by their mom, then it's not worth, right? I'm suggesting to actually do it if this was a
Okay.
serious venture,
Maybe there
or
is already a podcast doing that, and then you could look.
or reach out to that. That's what I'm saying. There's points that you can hit to get others. It's like the VIPs that can introduce you to the three engineers you need.
Yeah,
Whatever.
at the end, we'll need to have a process in place, right? So that get executed, right? So it's nice to have plenty of different ideas of how we could do it, but at some point, someone needs to grind it and then do it.
Truer words have never been spoken. That's all I got over on my side, Jeremy. If you got more, I'll just listen in here.
No, that's fine. I have to ponder on how I do that. The other thing is, there's one thing I really like as well, and maybe we can end up on that. I'm fine. Well, I think we did talk long enough on this subject. But the other idea that I like is to create awareness and actually have the other people come forward. Right. So that could be effectively saying
Inbound.
yeah, exactly. Type of like, we're doing a lot of SEOs for QuickMail itself, not for the job of QuickMails, right? So it could also be that, we spend a little bit more time to get SEO for like people who are looking for what's around, maybe best, best jobs in Ruby, whatever. I'm like, saying something at random, but that's another possibility, figuring out like, what are people really typing or searching when they're, I don't know, like what is the signal before someone, is thinking like maybe effectively the layoff is a signal for them, and maybe they search some stuff, as a knee-jerk reaction, type of like, oh, what's around, what's existing here.
Another idea kicked over.
Okay.
Again, so product engineers, Ruby product engineers. Why wouldn't we just find the greatest products in the past 12 months that were released? Based on sales, product hunt reviews, and then work backwards to find those with a really small product team. You could probably find outstanding products that were built by one person.
Yeah, that's right.
And reach out to her because she's the one behind this thing that everybody loved.
Yeah.
Why would that not work?
It could. Like I mentioned, we're gonna come back to culture fit, like you could be the best engineers, but
that's not for outreach. That's not for outreach. That's
right.
for probably
Interview.
the rest of the interview and beyond. I'm not worried at that point.
All right. So I still got a little bit of juice on my water cooler, but I'm okay to go back at my desk Oh, you're finished already.
All done over here, but it was nice.
Yeah, thanks for all the great ideas. Hopefully, if you're listening and you got some ideas on how to hire, different roles with cold outreach, then send an email, podcast@quickmail.io. We're more than happy to discuss it, maybe for the next water cooler or whatever.
Give you a shout out. Make it well worth your while. In fact, if you want to throw in, let's see, if you include a little one-liner and you do send something insightful, maybe we'll just read your one-liner, give you a little ad air time.
That could be another
exchange.
sponsor.
Great idea. Why not?
Free sponsorships for whoever is bringing me developers. There you go. Ruby on Rails, not Python. Don't need those ones.
Oh dear.
We should send them
All
to
right.
Jack. He'll be fine. He'll be happy.
One day you'll come over from the dark side. In the meantime, great podcast, great water cooler.
All right. Thanks, Jack. I'll see you next time.
Cool, man.